So there are like, say, for example, Uranus is a planet which is like having a pole tilt, which is directly almost perpendicular to the direction of sun. So it's something like like a ball rolling. Because it's other planets are like 23-24 degree tilt, but this is 90 degree tilt, etc. That's what. And another crazy thing is about the Venus, which is having a direction opposite rotation, so that the sunrise, the typical proverbial sun rising in the west and setting in the east will happen in that kind of planet. Instead of sending a person into the future, you can transmit information
into the future.
The time travel to future is not having any theoretical problem. It's only a technological problem. But
Really?
technology is not available right now to send an actual human being into future.
I was looking forward to this podcast for an extremely long time. And trust me, if you like chatter about UFOs, aliens, science fiction oriented concepts like time travel, like the future of science, this conversation with ISRO scientist Jijith Nadumuri is going to be the conversation you've been looking forward to. Trust me when I say this. If you enjoy these slightly alternative conversations, but if you want to back it up with science, this is the episode for you. If you can't consume the entire podcast because this one was slightly long and heavy, we have a highlights channel on YouTube. It's called TRS Clips. If you want to increase your attention span, then meditate using my meditation app Level. It will help you begin your meditation journey, and then you'll be able to watch our episodes in their entirety. And finally, I'll say follow us on Spotify. We're a Spotify exclusive. Every episode's available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. UFOs! Aliens! Kya alien hote hain, dosto? You'll get to know the truth in this particular episode. Enjoy yourselves. Jijith Nadumuri, sir, welcome to the Ranveer show. How are you?
Yeah, I'm fine. Thank you.
You know, we've got so many demands to bring an ISRO scientist on the show. You're a very hot property on the internet. Why do you think that is? Why do you think the audience is so fascinated by ISRO scientists?
Because primarily because ISRO is such a different organization. It's a government organization, but it has caught the imagination of all the youngsters and the entire youth of the country because of the way the launches are happening and the kind of achievements ISRO was having in the last 3-4 decades, and even recently so many kind of things which are like, not, I don't say science fiction, but something which every Indian will be feel proud of, going to the moon, going to the Mars. So it's like something like it has got an aura of itself, that ISRO has that kind of you can say fame, and also it can captivate the mind of the youth. Definitely that could be the reason.
Okay. One thing I've understood about scientists is that most scientists actually began to fall in love with science through science fiction. Like, we all saw movies, we read books, which actually got us inclined towards the world of science. And then the ones who were very inclined towards it became scientists. So in the modern day, sir, as a scientist, what do you really do at ISRO? Like, I know it's a very raw question, but what does a scientist at ISRO do? Like, what are you conducting research on? And how is ISRO built specifically from a scientist perspective, in terms of our different scientists assigned to different projects, assigned to different fields? How would you begin to explain this?
Yeah, so basically in ISRO, the primary focus is on the launching of the vehicles. That is the what you call colloquially called rockets, but it is called launch vehicles, and it has massive power, like take 2 or 3 or 4 tons of payload into the space. So that is the primary activity that ISRO is doing. But it has got the launch vehicle is the base, and then it has the satellite part of it, where you bring in all the sensors, etc. So it's like exploration of the planets, of the moon, or like sensing the different parameters on the Earth's surface. So these are all kind of one part of it. And on the next level of it, that is the launch vehicle, satellite. On the third level, you have the applications, which is like specific like remote sensing, for example, creating the map of rivers. Even Saraswati River was like discovered like that. So all these things happen. So this is the three different categories that you find in ISRO. And I was fortunate to work in the launch vehicle area mostly, where I launched the GSLV series, etc. That's one thing. And of course, if you look at the organization is pretty much big. It's like around 16,000 to 25,000. There is a expansion that has happened. So that is distributed all over India, with big centers being Sriharikota, the launch pad, or the spaceport of India. And then Bangalore, it is focused for satellites. And Ahmedabad is focused for the application part of it.
Okay.
And Trivandrum is another important original center where a lot of things happen. Abdul Kalam worked there with that small rocket which he took in the bicycle, etc. That is very famous in the internet. So those things. So overall, this is what primarily the ISRO does: launch vehicles, satellites, and applications.
Okay. When you say applications, what does it entail?
Yeah, so the just like the satellite sits as a payload on top of the launch vehicle. Like the satellites, some typically have 210 to 100 kilogram in weight. The application sits on top of the satellite. It's a payload for the satellite,
like a laser or a camera,
laser camera, sensors, or any kind of experimental unit. Like it can do chemistry, like chemical analysis of your atmosphere. It can study the rays coming from sun or some stars. Or any kind of you can say scientific instrument is the application.
Okay. And the reason it requires this much research is because up in space the conditions are different, much harsher. So therefore it requires a lot of work to be done on Earth to be able to work in space.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Yes. All right. I'm going to ask you a slightly intense question. It's a yes or no question. Are there secret projects that you're not allowed to talk about?
Yeah, definitely. But that we should keep it aside.
Okay. Separate kind of related question. You know what this show is famous for? Like this show, the podcast. You know what it's famous for?
You bring unknown facts to the youth. That is one of the things.
We also talk about things which are a little larger than life, maybe a little bit on the paranormal side. Okay. So I've always wanted to ask an ISRO scientist this. Do you believe in aliens, sir?
Answer is definitely yes.
You believe in aliens?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Why do you say definite yes?
So because many people think that the concept of alien is in the realm of a paranormal kind of, or it's something like a fiction.
Yeah.
But just based on the pure scientific principles, if you look at, because Earth is just one planet, and it's just a sun, the star sun, which is where the Earth is rotating around sun, is one among the billions of stars in the Milky Way galaxy, and you have billions of galaxies in the universe. So the probability of only having intelligence species just in Earth, if you look at all the billions and trillions of planets that is possibly available in the universe, is very, very rare. I am just inverting that probability. That it just we being only intelligent species in the universe is there's a very low probability for that.
Like mathematically
it is impossible.
Okay.
That just only one planet have intelligent species. So the natural consequence is that in the universe it is teeming with intelligent species.
Okay. Are any of those secret projects related to aliens or some kind of alien life?
I will not be able to aliens is not the means you can say that's not many. There are different kind of secret projects which is better we cannot have it in a public conversations.
Yeah.
But I'm giving you the most important factor that means acknowledging or believing in alien is not something which is absurd.
Yeah.
And you can get it from I'm giving you authentically from a scientist. I'm saying it's a kind of natural in the universe to have intelligent species like humans. And the second consequence, because your question have another consequence, because whether the aliens are there in our local neighborhood. So that is the most important question. The thing is,
You mean the solar system?
yes.
Hmm.
So the natural, because that is another, because mathematically the existence of intelligent species is given. There are no doubt about it. People who argue opposite seems to be kind of absurd, basically. Now, whether the second question, whether they are available or present in our premises, that is like our neighborhood planets, moon, or in the Earth, like around in the area of Earth. That is what the kind of question where people will be like gray. Like some people will say yes, some people will say no. So even there, so there are two camps, whether they are there or not in our premises. So I have, like, based on my own kind of, it's not nothing, I don't put ISRO here, but my own kind of analysis, independent analysis, like seems that there is a kind of alien, that is intelligent presence other than human presence in our planet itself.
In our planet?
Yes.
You mean Earth?
Earth, yeah.
And there is some other intelligent...
Yeah, I mean, saying that, like, there is an ambient alien presence all over the universe.
What does that mean?
Means because of the mathematical probability, right?
Okay.
Because you should have the intelligent species other than humans in the universe. That is the natural probability. That is what.
Why did you call it ambient?
Ambient means it's like, it's again ambient, basically based on probability.
Okay.
So if you take a sector of the Milky Way galaxy, then there are certain number of habitable planets that is possible in those in that particular sector. And out of that kind of habitable planets, a lot of them can be advanced, civilizationally advanced, and a lot of them can be of the level of human being. So human being, like our kind of capabilities, if you measure, basically like we have just have the full control. I mean, I would say more or less have full control of the single planet Earth, and we are capable of exploring our stellar neighborhood. So there are categories for the designating aliens based on this their capability. So this is one of the base capability that we say that any kind of sentient beings, that is what I'm including, that's colloquially called aliens, they can have in different levels of technology. So one is they have control of their own planet. Second level is not only they can control their planet, I mean they can navigate around the planet within a day, but they are also capable of exploring the neighborhood, the stellar neighborhood. So we are at that stage. So you can have these aliens in different systems, that is similar kind of habitable planets, which are much more advanced than us, mainly because they started earlier. Because that is one possibility. Again, this is again mathematical possibility that I am talking about, because sun started at the birth of sun happened somewhat during the middle age of the universe. So the birth of universe, the current theory is mostly between 15 to 13 billion years the universe has expanded and it has originated. Out of that, somewhere sun is a kind of a second generation, third generation star. So there are stars which are born and died much earlier than this current generation of sun. You can think about sun as a like second generation, third generation star. So you have first generation and second generation stars which are older than sun. So all the habitable planets which are revolving around such a star will have a civilization which have already more advanced than us. So these kind of civilizations, they can like go to the next level of technological advancement. That is not only exploring your stellar neighborhood, but inhabiting the stellar neighborhood.
You mean, for example, in our solar system, creating a civilization on Mars?
Yeah. Terraforming Mars, Moon, Mars, and Europa. These are the kind of, even people have decided based on the kind of climatic conditions and proximity to the Earth. There is a kind of well-defined progression of how humanity will expand into solar system. So the first will be Moon because of the proximity. So Moon is not habitable; it is an empty space, but it is very much close to Earth, because of which you can transfer water or any kind of natural resources between Earth and Moon. So Moon can have a very high probability of being colonized, maybe just at the same time when Mars is colonized. Mars have a more habitable kind of an environment with a slightly blue, like not a completely like a similar kind of sky, but more or less very similar kind of sky, and a very similar kind of day, around 24 to 25 hours of a day. Everything is there, and axial tilt exactly similar to the Earth's axial tilt, very very close to Earth. So it has got a very close neighbor, like a very good kind of a climate, which like, and minus 16 degrees. That is some temperature that you get in Mars, which many people can easily live in India, in planet Earth. So Mars and Moon, they can even compete which will be the first habitable kind of environment. And then you have the asteroidal belt region. But there are so many small dwarf planets like Cirrus, which have the capability to sustain human life in a kind of next stage.
Which planet?
Cirrus.
Cirrus.
Yes.
That's a part of our solar system only?
It's like part of the asteroidal belt. It's the largest asteroid. It is spherical. It's more or less like a dwarf planet.
But it's within our solar system.
Yeah, yes. It's like, for example, after Mars, you have an asteroidal belt. Inside that, this is one of the planet.
One of the big asteroids.
One of the big asteroid. So it's currently designated a dwarf planet or asteroid like that.
Okay.
So that kind of those Cirrus and then Eros. So many such dwarf asteroids or dwarf planets can also sustain human life, and that entire asteroidal belt is a completely mineral rich, because all kind of minerals which are required for sustaining human life, and also valuable assets for human beings,
like gold,
and then titanium, then copper, iron, all this material that are required for constructing a spaceship. See, all these things are available in the asteroidal belt region. So you will colonize, basically, ultimately you will be having human habitation in that area as well. Similarly, Mars, and then you have the moons of Jupiter, like Io, Europa, Ganymede, Callisto. These all the four planets are capable of sustaining human life once you have achieved that kind of technological capability. And you have some moons of Saturn, that is Titan, which is having even liquid nitrogen oceans, all these things. And this Europa have water ocean, etc. So what I'm saying is, maybe we are drifting from the question.
No, there's no drifting in podcasts. It's like this only.
So what I'm saying is, basically, every civilization or every sentient beings will achieve certain level of maturity, so that they will leave their home planet and start exploring their stellar neighborhood.
Okay.
So that stage is over, and then they will go to the next stage where they start exploring the galactic, that is the entire galaxy they will explore. And at that stage, because it is based on the statistical analysis, the possibilities that there are minimum some 14 to 20 intelligent systems in our own Milky Way galaxy.
Intelligent
means because of the nature, the habitable zones around these planets. On the stars, which is part of the Milky Way galaxy system. There are now currently people identify around 56 such systems. And our search for extraterrestrial intelligence, that kind of SETI and all these people are focusing on those systems to get some signals out of them. So this is happening. This is all already there in place, and people are very seriously considering this kind of things. Just like I mentioned, it's the presence of aliens is a given thing. It's not some matter of speculation. Statistically, it is the natural thing. So ultimately, what I'm saying is, you have at least more than a dozen of systems that can produce a civilization which can advance to the next stage of galactic exploration.
Okay.
So when I say galactic exploration, naturally those intelligent beings will come to planet Earth, because we also is an intelligent being. And any kind of civilization, that is, I use the word civilization because, again, the same word for aliens. So it's an extraterrestrial civilization can sense whether intelligence is there in a planet based on the electromagnetic signals that we release. And we have been releasing it for more than 70 years. So definitely those signals will reach them, and they will be available, present here.
We've been releasing them how? Through satellite dishes?
Because of the natural, the moment you discover radio signals and we started radio transmission, then we are automatically sending out radio signals from planet Earth.
Okay.
And these radio signals will never end. It will keep on spreading to the like beyond the solar system at the speed of light.
Okay.
So this will be captured by any intelligent being, and they will aware that okay, there is intelligent beings in planet Earth, and they will come and seek. So I'm coming back to that point, because of which there is a kind of 90, I will always say probability. So there is a 90% probability that some of the intelligent beings are on planet Earth watching us
already.
Wow.
God bless you, sir. Thank you for being on the show. That's it, ladies and gentlemen. No, I'm kidding. Okay. Do you like conversations like this? Do you like talking about extraterrestrial life?
Yes. So that was one of the area of interest for me. And as you guessed right, like these are kind of such questions that took me to ISRO. This is why I wanted to be part of a space research organization since the childhood, like that. I have two passions. One is this space research, planets. Another is this our ancient Mahabharata, Ramayana, Rigveda.
Vedic thought.
So these two, it was like constantly pulling me this way or that way since childhood.
Maybe it's the same passion actually.
Yes.
It's a little larger than life thinking.
Correct.
Vedic thought and space are linked for all you know.
Yes. There are like, for example, you can see some kind of like descriptions in Mahabharata where the Arjuna is main. The Arjuna is the main like there is a kind of chapter in Mahabharata called Arjuna Bhaigamana, which is like Arjuna is going in the space. Space means it can be interpreted as like this upper atmosphere, or it can be interpreted as outer space as well.
Really?
So again, you can see that kind of in that there it is mentioned there are large number of vimanas moving around in the outer space. Wherever he's going, either upper atmosphere or the outer space.
He sees other
vimanas. He's in a vimana like driven by Matali, who is the charioteer of Indra, and Indra has invited Arjuna to Devaloka. So Arjuna is from the Himalayas. He goes. It's something like upper altitude. All these vimanas are related to upper altitude. If you look at very closely, I have a different theory about vimanas, but there is another theory which is connected with higher technologies.
Okay.
So I handle all these theories as a separate possibilities, because we are at the possibility level, and what is the exact reality we have to go with the time machine, go to the period of the Pandavas to understand. So I have currently these different theories. So one of the theories is that there is a kind of intervention of a technological intervention during that period, so that some of these technologies which we only see in future, somehow because of some reason the ancient people got exposed to that. That is the ancient alien theory. I have published one article in one of the magazines, a UK based magazine, about that. So I have that line of research as one interesting part where I look at this possibility. But how exactly it happened, there are a lot of different theories, because one of them I think I have seen in your show is that there is a kind of technological advancement in the past. So that is one possibility, but need not be that is the only possibility, because there is a possibility of time leakage. I think I don't know whether you are aware of.
I have never heard this word before.
Yeah, that is like if somebody from the future because we are all having interest in understanding what is happening in Mahabharata, Ramayana period. What if in future somebody in the remote future, like from the 23rd century, traveled into the Ramayana Mahabharata period just because of curiosity? Then they will introduce some element of future into the past. That is the time leakage possibility.
Wow.
Yeah.
Go on.
Yeah. So that is that is the kind of possibility. So it need not be that there is an ancient technology in the beginning, because there are a lot of counter reasons that for understanding that it is not there, because technology is an incremental kind of component. Like it's an incremental thing.
You mean it grows gradually?
Grows gradually. So it's not like we are not so super intelligent than our ancient people. It's not because we have inherited a long sequence of technological growth, because of which you can use a mobile phone. You will get navigate. Google Voice will navigate you. That's how I came here. It's something like a devata, talking to you through voice, telling where to go. That's the Google Map is all about. So this kind of technology, right? It is growing incrementally, but your future information, the information or technology in the future can get leaked into the past. So then, see, that is what more or less currently I think about some anomalous. Anomalous means we cannot explain it in using a natural logical methodology. You cannot explain some of the things in Mahabharata. So some of these anomalous things in the Mahabharata could be a kind of a time leak. And this is one of the theory. There is another theory of, because there is an ambient presence of aliens here. That is the extraterrestrial intelligence. That is the intelligence in our entire galaxy or even entire universe. Because whenever these people, when they have capability to explore a galaxy or an entire universe, then naturally they will be present here as well. That is inevitable. You don't have to have any special devices to check and say that they are not. There is also another thing, because it will validate what you said. But otherwise, statistically, mathematically, there is a possibility that they are here. So then they may be here, because a few thousand years is not big deal. So they may be here during whenever the Pandavas or Rama was there. So they may be here. That is another possibility. This is, you have to consider this as a theory, because I have alternate theories which I have put in my book. So all these are different possible theories.
Yeah. But it matters because you're an ISRO scientist. You know, so you have an outlook of science as well.
Yes.
Which is why my next question to you is to the scientist in you.
Yeah.
Is time travel scientifically possible? And if yes, how? And is this something you've thought about? Is time machine something you've thought about?
Yes. Yeah. So the answer for the first question, that is it time travel scientifically possible? Yeah, that is the kind of answer that comes from the general theory of relativity that Albert Einstein has brought to us. So basically, what it tells to us is that the space that we call that we experience right now, like it has got 3 dimensions, like length, breadth, and height. So this floor, if you look at it, has length and breadth, and the height of the wall gives you that. So we are accustomed to be in a 3D space. So we assume that everything is normally 3-dimensional. That's what we normally feel. But when you look at Einstein's theory of relativity, what it does is it considers time as one of the it's as similar, almost similar to your length, breadth, and height,
as another dimension.
And as another dimension. So many people find it very difficult to comprehend the dimensionality. The entire concept of dimensionality is very difficult to comprehend. So I normally give a kind of a mental exercise. Like, for example, if you look at a piece of paper, and whatever you draw inside that piece of paper, you can draw a rectangle, you can draw a house with if you are an artist, you can draw the house. So you feel like you have a kind of a depth inside that. So assume that your 3D space has somehow got completely absorbed into a paper. So once you have that in your mental picture, then you can assume that if you put a pencil as perpendicular to the paper, then that can be considered as a 4th dimension. So of course, like when you look at the piece of paper, you will be see one of the dimension get compressed into the paper itself. Like if you draw a rectangle, you can see the length and breadth or aligning with the length and breadth of the paper. But when you are drawing a house with the full color, shade, shadow, everything, so it's full house in a photograph of a house, for example.
Like
so
a 3D house, where you're seeing it from a diagonal angle.
Correct. So the 3rd dimension is actually you can say absorbed into the paper itself. That's what you are saying. Then you can conceptualize a kind of a fourth dimension on that paper. So that is how you can visualize or comprehend the 4th dimension.
Have you seen Interstellar, the movie?
Yeah, yes.
So at the end of Interstellar, the climax that they've shown is a good representation of the fourth dimension.
Correct.
That you can actually move forward and backward on the timeline as well.
Yeah, right.
Okay. So for example, this podcast that's happening now, actually, if someone had the capability of time travel, they would be able to see the same 3D space, but from a month ago when I was podcasting with a cricketer probably.
Exactly, yeah.
Correct thinking?
Correct.
Okay.
So when you have in fourth dimension, your body now you human shape, you are shaped like a human being, like, so but in a fourth dimension it's like a big snake. Your body will be look like a snake, as a four-dimensional snake, because at the tail end of it you have your small baby, you're born as a baby. That will be your end point. Like even go can further, it will be a small like single cellular zygote, a single cell, that is your tip of your lifeline. And if you go to the other end, you will see your dead body. So between your dead body and your single cellular, that's a zygotical form when you are born, you have all your bodies that you have assumed in your life. That all combined together, you will have a four-dimensional lifeline. And the way to look at it, something like a big snake. It's a kind of your body is like a four-dimensional snake, and this entire snake body of the four-dimensional snake body is in the time axis. So you have like a part of it is in the past, part of it is in the future. So this is your structure of your universe.
You know, I just want to mention one thing. This is kind of little difficult even for me to comprehend, though I have an understanding of what you're saying. There's a lot of viewers who may not even have understood this. But the key to be noted here is that there are dimensions which are difficult to perceive beyond human understanding.
Correct.
This is one of those conversations that it's just a difficult concept to understand.
Correct. So once you understand this, see, going and seeing your past life is nothing but like, because you have millions of bodies in your four-dimensional timeline. So you are just using some kind of a scientific methodology. You are taking one of the body and going back to your past life body or your future life body, and like that.
Regular human life, you can only perceive the three dimensions.
Yes.
But this is some higher understanding, maybe.
Correct.
Okay, go on.
So this is the overall Einstein's basic principles of which actually give out scientifically or mathematically give out the possibility of a time travel. So the general theory of relativity doesn't prohibit the time travel, because you can move backward and forward in time. That is, go to past and future. Just like you go left and right, forward and backward, or upward and downwards, you can go past and future. So all set, that is everything fine. But there are certain kind of laws which actually can create some kind of interference with your full freedom in your fourth dimension. Some of them are like entropy. That is the principle of entropy, which is like which insists that any kind of activity cannot be reversed backwards. Like for example, if you have a glass, if you throw it on the floor, it breaks into multiple pieces. So breakage is natural, but there is theoretically or maybe probabilistically, it is not very easy for all the different pieces of your broken glass to assemble back. So this is one problem that affects this principle of full freedom of time travel. So whenever you devise a kind of a machine, so they have to consider this kind of thing. Another thing is cause-effect relationships. So all the effects are a result of a certain set of causes. Maybe it's a very it's something like you are actually the son of your parents. So your two of your parents, your father and mother, is the cause that created you. So there is a kind of a chain of cause and effect relationship that is in play. So for example, there are certain actions. It's called a paradox, time travel paradox, grandfather paradox. So many names it is.
That if you go back in time and kill your grandfather, then do you even exist?
Correct. So there are certain such questions. So these are the two cause-effect relationships, and the entropy are the two main things that actually curtail your freedom to travel backward and past. Future, there is no problem because it allows the cause effect, no impact on the cause effect, no impact on the entropy. So you can travel into the future, but traveling into the past, there are these two problems. So scientists have, so these are all beyond whatever Einstein had thought. So these are all happened in the last century. After Einstein has gone, people have thought about, of course, after that quantum theory has expanded a little more with the possibility of time travel in using quantum mechanics. Everything has been thought about. And then that is the where you get the black hole concept. Like black hole actually wraps your space time so that it creates a hole which are 4-dimensional holes into which you can travel, and naturally you can get into a place which is like space area in space time which is past or future.
Yeah,
So
I just want to explain it in a small way. Take a paper, you draw
Correct.
one dot at one corner of the paper, on the opposite end,
yeah,
as in on the opposite corner, you draw another dot.
Yeah.
When you join those two dots by folding the paper, that's how a black hole works in space time.
correct, exactly.
Okay.
So you have a lot of thought experiments which can like explain this concept very nicely, like whatever you mentioned.
Okay.
So these are all like theoretical advancement happened both in the theory of relativity and quantum theory. Then this Stephen Hawking, he has introduced a lot of concepts into that, which allows or disallows you the going into the past in your time axis. So the whatever recently, or maybe not very recent, but at least two decades old theory. I mean, it's starting from 1990s. We have got a theory of multiverse. You maybe heard of it. Maybe we might have done some podcast on it. So when you have a multiverse, it's something like this grandfather paradox itself will not be a problem, and cause-effect relationship or entropy, all these kind of problems will not be creating any hindrance in the time travel.
Because according to the multiverse theory, if you go back in time, you're actually sprouting out a new universe itself.
Yes.
So whatever happens in that timeline is exclusive to that timeline. Whatever happens in your original timeline is just how it is.
Correct. So when you are moving into the past, you are not moving into your own universal past, but it is a parallel universal past you are moving. Because of which you are not, it's completely a new territory.
Okay.
Whatever you do there, it will create a kind of a new chain of events, and that universe will be, see, the only problem that happens is that there were infinite number of universes, infinite number of copies of yourself, infinite number of grandfather's copies of your grandfather copies, but you happen to go into a past and reached a universe where you kill the grandfather, so that you are not born in that universe, but you are still there. So that grandfather paradox is eliminated.
Okay.
So time travel, you have to separate into two categories: traveling into future, traveling into past. If you want to travel into past, then you have to accept that there are multiple universes. Okay. That is where we are standing right now.
The world of science.
The world of science is standing right now.
I know that science and scientific discovery eventually lead to engineering.
Correct. Yeah.
Has there been any engineering that's happened in the direction of time travel, or has anyone attempted anything?
Officially, like nobody. ISRO is not attempting that, I can very clearly say.
Okay.
But there are certain interesting organizations who are trying that. But I think currently we are a little bit premature in trying for the time travel. But there is another interesting concept. I mean, it has been around only for 5 years, so it's not very much came into the literature. Is that instead of sending a person into the future, you can transmit information
into the future.
See, the future, the time travel to future is not having any theoretical problem. It's only a technological problem. But
really?
Technology is not available right now to send an actual human being into future.
What would be required?
So here what is they are suggesting is that, of course, this requires a kind of cooperation with the future people. But assuming that there is a kind of people who are ready to receive your information, what you can do is your entire human body is nothing but a lot of information. Like, for example, all your tissue, cell, then DNA. So if you transmit all the information in your DNA, and if there is a technology to take that information and recreate your DNA, then of course your body characteristics can be transmitted. Similarly, mental. So you have information encoding in your DNA and also in your brain. So information inside your brain is nothing but your memories, your thoughts, etc. So it's a different kind of information, different than genetic information. So your brain information and genetic information are the two main information that defines you, who you are. I mean, so when all this information goes and it get assembled back exactly like this, you become like you just get transposed to another place.
You're basically taking tiny bits of yourself and throwing it into the future.
Yes.
My question is, what is the device to be able to throw it?
Yeah. So this is currently we don't have it. I mean, basically all the devices which can transmit information, if you make it advanced, you can do that. But currently we don't have it. But
one second, sir. I'm so sorry.
Yeah.
I'm interrupting. This is just to understand it better. I'm a telecom engineer,
Yeah.
and I've learned how you transmit information from one device to another device.
Correct.
And it's not as simple as people think. People visualize it as a laser comes out of one device, probably carries information. So when you're actually making a phone call to someone also, telecom engineering is at play, where your voice is broken up into tiny bits.
Yeah.
And then sent from one device, your mobile phone, to the mobile tower to a mobile center, then another mobile tower, then the other person's phone. Very rudimentary explanation.
Yeah.
So you're saying that if a device is powerful enough, it can actually not just transmit to another location in space,
but also in time,
but also in time.
in future.
But when you say powerful enough, do you mean a very high voltage or something?
Oh no, it's not just powerful, but it's also the technological capability. See, currently, if you look at realistically in our current time period, as of 2023, we have the capability to map the human thoughts, brain waves. You can actually, and there are certain devices where you think you can move the mouse of a mouse cursor on a laptop. So that kind of capabilities are there. So that means now you have a rudimentary level of capability to map some of your human thoughts and transmit it into a external device, and then you can do it for actuation, etc. So there is a brain based control systems, everything available. Just like in a virtual reality device, if you have seen, you can use your eyes and you can control your the 3D objects, etc. Or you can create a menu. If there is a menu, you can control the menu, and you can do a lot of things just by looking. And the advanced version of is that you just think about it. You don't have to look at it. You have to think about, like, you want to move the mouse on a particular, like if you want a coffee, so you have a coffee machine and it's an augmented reality based menu is in front of you. You want coffee means you can move the mouse onto the coffee button, click on it, and you get the coffee.
This already exists.
It's already there. This much kind of things are already there.
And they've done this by mapping brain waves.
Basically, so brainwave mapping.
When you think about, move in the right direction or move towards the top direction, a particular part of your brain lights up. Yeah. The sensor picks up which part of your brain has lit up, and then sends the signal to the device saying, oh, this person is thinking about moving the cursor to the top right.
Yeah. And this itself is very technologically a leap, because this machine is able to decipher the coordinate. What is the kind of motion, like left to right, top, or to which amount you have to move. All these things are able to get coordinated into the machine.
Okay.
So that's a very good level of capability. So the advanced version of it is that, assume that you have got a cooperation of a future entity, like maybe 21st or 23rd century.
ISRO in the 23rd century.
Yeah.
Okay.
So you can so then your robotics, everything will be advanced to such a level that you will be able to have a robotic brain which can absorb everything a human brain is capable of. So that means it can download the entire human brain's memory as well as human brain's thought onto its own brain. So you can have electronic or artificially created robots which will resemble you. Of course, facial resemblance is already available. You can actually create a robot of exactly looking like you. Facially, it is possible. So you have your own what do you call it? It is something like, you can use the word avatar, for example, but it's not in the sense of avatar in a metaverse, but it's like a physical robot which is actually ready to embody you.
Yeah. But how will you send it in the future? Again, as in when you're saying a powerful device to be able to send information into the future, is it through a wormhole?
Yeah, here this is we use a quantum tunneling kind of concept. So it's a kind of a wormhole, but it's a quantum tunnel.
Okay, like a micro black hole.
Yeah, it's like you can create a local black hole in your device. I mean, the quantum collider, etc., that they are actually leading towards that. So you can actually create a wormhole, a local wormhole in your own space time, and you can direct it to any point in your future. So once the wormhole is ready, sending information is easier than sending the entire human body to that future.
Because I believe that according to the theory of how wormholes work, if you throw mass through a wormhole, the wormhole collapses.
Yes.
So therefore, just throwing a laser in without any mass, but just with information, actually might be able to be a transfer of
correct.
data into the future.
Yeah. So you are only transmitting data, and data is electromagnetic waves. So it's like it can go in the speed of light through the wormhole and reach the other part. So, and there is a receiver. So this particular, what I have designated as avatar, it can also be called as a receiver. So it's a receiver of your consciousness. So then in the first time I'm using the word consciousness because nobody has defined it. So currently we can only define it as, like, for example, my consciousness is nothing but my memory, which is a lot of data, and my thoughts. So once these two things are transmitted, then I am transmitting my consciousness.
Understood.
Like that.
You know, people don't talk about crop circles as much anymore. It used to be a very hot topic 15 years ago when I was in school. Everyone used to talk about crop circles because of this movie called Signs. It was about aliens again, but malevolent aliens, you know, evil aliens.
Yes.
And I remember seeing some Discovery and Nat Geo shows where at the end of the episode, they would actually show a guy saying, yeah, I went out there in my field in the evening and me and my cousin built that crop circle. So the whole show leads you up to getting excited about what crop circles are and other aliens. And at the end of the episode, they kind of throw water on your fire of excitement by saying, oh, humans created this.
Yeah.
But you're saying that, if you ask them to do it again, they probably won't be able to.
Yeah, I am I'm making very factual here because I don't want to make any kind of statements which are considered like I am like an authoritative statement.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is there were some crop circles, and many people came and said that we created, like a group of 4 or 5 people said that we created it. They were not able to recreate it. That much I am telling. Now anybody can take any inference from that. See, somebody, their crop circle getting created. I mean, that is a reality. People can take photograph. It's not like UFO. It is on the ground. You can take photograph, everything. And the question comes, how it is created? Nobody can able to explain it. And there are different ways the people try to create it. It's all, it will be like a shabby kind of job that has been happening.
How do you create something that symmetric, that perfect?
Yes.
Okay. What do you think they are for, crop circles?
Yeah, that's a very important question. Because anyway, I put some 1 or 2 years on the crop circle as part of my curiosity.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what I have felt is that this crop circle has very much similarity with cymatic patterns. Cymatic patterns are the patterns that create when, like, for example, just one example is you take a copper rod, and there is some water in a copper ball, and you something copper, like copper spoon, for example, you make a hit, and it create a pattern in the water. That is a pattern of the sound vibrations. So these patterns will be like, which is very similar, like floral patterns that you make when you are, in Malayalam, in Kerala you have Pookalam, and in Maharashtra you have Rangoli. So that kind of very beautiful and traditionally looking kind of patterns will start emerging because of sound vibration. Sound can create that kind of pattern. And there are people who have studied Omkara, the sound of Omkara and other mantras, how it create this kind of beautiful traditional looking patterns in sand, in water and other medium. So
I'm sorry, I can't help myself. Om. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. So when we study, the crop circle patterns are matching with the cymatic patterns and Rangoli kind of patterns, or Pookalam, any kind of traditional patterns, cymatics, then crop circle, they have match.
Okay.
So we know why we are creating the Rangoli. It's like it creates an auspicious aura around your premises. It's like swasti. That is a kind of, it's a create a well-being.
We've had archaeologists on the show who've spoken a lot about archaeological and historical symbols. Okay. They say that a lot of ancient structures contained a lot of symbols because lots of cultures believe that symbols actually have an ability to capture power. Now, again, what is the science behind this? I have no idea. You're the scientist. I'm sure you've thought of this also, that even in the world of Tantra, when we use the word yantra, it's basically a symbol that represents God. It's the equivalent of praying to a murti, a statue. In the same way that a statue might contain some kind of divine energy, maybe even a symbol contains some kind of divine energy.
Correct. So another way to put it is like our ancient people have an idea about certain patterns that can create a physical well-being and healing power.
Maybe an electromagnetic field of sorts, or a change in the EM field.
I think it has more to do with, of course, like EM field, but more to do with our consciousness.
Okay.
Because for that I need to say a few more things, because consciousness is considered as the fifth after all the four forces. If there is anything left, that is consciousness.
You mean 4 dimensions?
The electromagnetic, the gravitational, then nuclear, then weak nuclear forces and electromagnetic forces. There are 4 forces.
Okay.
And of course, some of them are joined together into one, like electro-weak force, etc. But people were thinking, is there anything as a fifth? And that fifth is the consciousness. That is what quantum consciousness theory is saying. The fifth entity, which is similar to the forces, is the consciousness. So consciousness, we can consider, is not appropriate to call it as a force, but it is something similar to the force, like your electromagnetic or gravitational or weak nuclear forces. This is a kind of all-pervading attribute of the universe. So this particular pattern actually heals the consciousness, including electromagnetic, of course, but your own consciousness gets healed. That is what you look when you look at a pattern, one Rangoli or a Huklam. That's the same thing you feel. So these aliens or whoever is creating it, I don't put an agency here. Whichever intelligence is creating this crop circle, they are creating some healing power on the planet Earth.
So, question for you here is to the scientist in you again. I know that science doesn't have a definition for consciousness, and everyone has different opinions on what it is. Because you also have this whole dharmic side, this Vedic side. I'd love to know what you think about consciousness as a scientist, and then connect it to this whole crop circle and Rangoli thing.
The Western Westerners, like for a long period of time, they have thought consciousness as an emergent property of the systems. So any system which is complicated enough will have certain attributes and properties which are more than the sum total of their countable properties. So for example, human body is an aggregate of so many number of cells, but after joining all together, it has got a separate attributes and existence. So they thought that a lot of things come together. Okay, even computer, for example, transistors, everything come together, then it creates a kind of a experience of a computer. So they thought that the consciousness can be created by assembling things, etc. And this is called the concept of consciousness as an emergent property. That is, it emerges as a new attribute when you combine together a lot of simpler systems and make complex systems. 3-4 level of complexity, then consciousness just emerge. But then this theory got a big beating from the last I'd say 2 decades, from 2000 onwards. Because this emergent property theory reached nowhere. People started looking at brain, different parts of the brain, and try to find when the consciousness comes, etc. That biological studies reached nowhere. They're still going on, but there is no conclusion, etc. Then there are certain people like Roger Penrose and Mark Hameroff. These are like quantum theories, scientists working in the area of quantum theory, and they started formulating certain theories that consciousness, because the emergent consciousness and emergent property, it is not giving any result. So then let us consider consciousness as an attribute of the universe, and then things started emerging. For example, we already have the quantum theory principle, this collapse of the quantum wave function that you are familiar with. That is basically everything that is there in the universe exists as a probability cloud.
As in, only when you look at it, it exists.
Yeah. So, for example, whether there is an electron or not. So the universe don't say that there is an electron or no electron. It only says that there is a probability of having an electron in this particular location.
For example, everything is a combination of atoms together and electrons together. So these plants actually are only plants when we turn towards them and look at them. Is it a fair assessment of the theory?
Yeah, I mean, that is one way many people look at it, but actually this particular there or not thing works mostly in subatomic level. It is more true in subatomic level,
Okay.
at the electron level.
Not in our realm.
Yeah,
When
our realm, it is there is very difficult to make something is there or not. Of course, the Schrodinger cat experiment, etc., is there, but mostly it is mathematically more palatable in the subatomic level. So, but you can actually, for an electron, you can ask this question.
So
whether it is,
if we were able to shrink ourselves down to a subatomic level, then this theory would exist.
So you are correct in a way, because we are all like our entire human body is made of atoms in which you have electrons. So that are electrons that we are talking about. So of course, when the electron is not there and large number of electrons are not there, you yourselves just not there. I mean, that kind of situation will come. But more palatably, it is in the quantum or subatomic level. So you have a probability, right? Subatomic particles mostly like electrons and quarks. Quarks are the components making the protons and neutrons. All of them are defined by probabilistic waves. And if something has to be like from the level of probability, it's like a cloud. It's something like you have to consider something like a vapor kind of thing. From that probability, if something has to be concretely realized, then somebody need to observe it. So then you have an act of observation. So till the point of this quantum theory's principle of act of observation, every scientist thought that me as a scientist or an observer is independent of whatever is happening in the universe. But from that point onwards, it becomes very clear your consciousness plays a role in creation. Because see, till the time of this Erwin Schrödinger, this Stephen Hawking, for example, just they put out this theory and they were not thinking anything further. They said, okay, probabilistic wave function will give you a concrete object like a electron when you start observing it, and they left it. But it has got a bigger consequence, which only there is a whose foundation is in Vedanta, basically. So in the Vedanta, like for example, if you look at Advaita Vedanta principle, there is a kind of a theory. Theory means it is a part of the Advaita Vedanta. Like whatever the entire universe doesn't exist. Brahma Satyam Jagat Mithya. Jagat is Mithya, like it is not existing. Only when you are like ready to observe it, that it is there. So that is the principle of Advaita. When you look at it, you see it. Otherwise, it's not there. That kind of a concept. There is no existence other than in your own consciousness. So it is like if you ask for an Advaiti, they will say the entire universe of multiple people talking to each other, everything is your own like coming out from your own consciousness. You create that like that. That is what the Advaita Vedanta is saying. And if you look at the quantum theory of probabilistic wave collapse of the quantum wave, it is same thing. So that connect is established very recently.
Basically, consciousness is the source that creates reality.
Correct. Yes. So when you say a quantum probabilistic cloud collapse into a reality, when somebody observe it, basically you are pointing to the consciousness.
Okay.
The consciousness is observing and creating the reality.
How did we reach this conversation about consciousness now? I can't remember because we went down a very deep rabbit hole.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's come out to a human level.
Yeah.
I do have some questions about ISRO for you again.
Yeah.
While I've enjoyed the heck out of this conversation, I think you're one of the coolest people we've had on the show. Like you have so much to share with the world. And before we move into the rest of the podcast, I want to highlight that you've written a bunch of books related to Vedanta as well. And I find it incredible that you're an ISRO scientist who has now written books on Vedanta. And that's what we've had other scientists like Abhijit Chavda on the show. He also keeps highlighting Vedanta. So there's got to be some stuff in Vedic literature which is very parallel with quantum physics and astrophysics and all these subjects that you are dealing with. Am I right?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
The thing is, we are living in a period, I can say exactly from 2010 to last 10 years, we are living in a period wherein there is a lot of synergy between Vedantic insights and quantum consciousness studies.
You mean in the world of science, people are understanding, oh, this is already there in the world of Vedanta.
Yes. So there is a lot of course it was there. For example, Albert Einstein have read Bhagavad Gita, and Erwin Schrödinger and this Paul Dirac. All these people have full understanding about Advaita Vedanta, everything. So it's not something that has been started now, but Earlier, they were very skeptical. See, this all happened in 1900, 1920s, etc. And the last 70 years, people were talking the both ways, saying Vedanta is different, quantum consciousness theory is different, etc. But now, after a lot of back and forth, they are more and more converging and acknowledging the kind of similarities in the thought process. The most important being the collapse of the wave function, and the role of the observer in collapsing the wave function is equivalent to the Vedantic point of view that consciousness create the reality from a cloud of uncertainty.
Okay.
So they are now together, and that is why you see a lot of people, many scientists will be talking about quantum, Vedanta, and Vedantists will talk about quantum physics as much of the level they have, they will understand it.
Okay.
Like that.
Are your books also dealing with similar subjects?
Actually, there is some difference. The whatever actual two books I have written is, one is on Rig Veda, that is called Rivers of Rig Veda, and another one is on Ramayana, that is the geography of Ramayana. So my focus is on the geography of the Ramayana part.
Okay.
And as you said, I have on the subject of Vedanta, I have written articles, but the books are primarily on the Rig Veda and Ramayana.
Okay.
And it is a kind of a trilogy basically. So I have created a book on Rig Veda. And of course, the topic is little different because it's on the geographical aspect of Rig Veda, the rivers, as well as the historical, chronological aspect of Rig Veda. And its continuity in Valmiki Ramayana. And its continuity further into Mahabharata. So these three things, three texts I'm connecting into a thread, a single thread.
Okay.
And finding the chronological and geographical continuity from Rig Veda to Ramayana to Mahabharata. So that's the book's all about.
Crazy. We will link them down below.
Yeah.
I have a few more questions about ISRO also, sir.
Yeah.
I don't think too many people have an understanding of ISRO other than the fact that it's a very budget-friendly organization. Like in very small budgets, ISRO is able to do a lot. It's able to build extremely advanced technology.
Yeah.
What are some of the projects that you guys are currently doing? Whatever you can talk about in the public domain. I'm sure there's a ton you can't.
Yeah.
But whatever
is in public domain itself is huge. One is there is the currently active project is like trying to get one human person into the space. So that's called Gaganyaan. So Gaganyaan, of course, it's when you look at from the point of view of NASA has done it before, but there is a lot of excitement in our country doing it, right? So that kind of things are going on. So as part of Gaganyaan, you need to have a capsule that is capable of sustaining a human being while it is in space flight. So that is one. There is a Gaganyaan capsule which will actually finally go as a payload to one of the largest launch vehicles, Mark III, GSLV Mark III, etc. So instead of a satellite, which will be like a payload, you will have this module which will have a human being inside that. You have the space suit, everything inside, covered with space suit, etc. And this has to now start from Sriharikota. It starts to launch from Sriharikota. That is the most ambitious thing that is going on. Then Chandrayaan 1, Chandrayaan project. So I was associated with Chandrayaan 1 project. I had done a kind of I was part of the software simulation studies of the Chandrayaan 1. That is in 2001.
Software simulation studies.
Yeah, so you have to whenever your spacecraft moves from release from the launch vehicle, it will be in an earthbound orbit. So it will be a 100-kilometer orbit around Earth, and it has to be slowly moved to a lunar transitory orbit.
Okay.
So it's like a H-shaped trajectory. So it's the spacecraft is rotating at a 100-kilometer height around Earth. When it is thrust, the retro rockets fire, it slowly moves in an H-shaped orbit and start connecting with the moon. And then it start orbiting moon. And it become a satellite of moon. So turning the earthbound satellite, that is the spacecraft rotating Earth, turning it into a satellite of moon. So there is a lot of maneuvers, etc. And it is a very complicated mathematics, using tensor calculus, multi-body problem, etc. So that kind of entire simulation that I was part of that, and I was also fortunate to meet APJ Abdul Kalam
Okay.
as part of that project.
How
Yeah.
was it meeting him?
It's a very, very short meeting, but I got a chance because I was in Trivandrum, and APJ Abdul Kalam was just about to be the president of India, some 1 or 2 weeks before he became the president of India. I was I saw the project, all the details, and he was highly appreciative of that one.
What is his aura like?
He is, very simple person, and some of the things you mentioned about ISRO, how they are doing economic launches, is mainly because of the people, Abdul Kalam and the people who were in the generation, because they were having these sounding rockets, rockety sounding rockets. They were taking it on a bicycle. So what motivated them is the passion of making ISRO succeed even with the limited budgets, and that kind of culture continued, and that is how now we are able to have ISRO is the lowest budget space launching organization, which can launch a spacecraft to Mars lesser than the budget of a Hollywood movie about Mars.
It's crazy. Yeah, that's what we're proud of ISRO for,
Correct,
all
yeah.
of India.
We don't know. Yeah. And the another thing, the Gaganyaan is one. Then there is another reattempt to, because second, the Chandrayaan 2 little slightly failure, because the plan was to actually launch on the surface of moon, but it didn't succeed. But the orbit, everything happened. So Chandrayaan 2, the retake, that is the new mission for again going back to the moon. With a little more technology pieces, and then the other one is the Mangalyaan. Mangalyaan, we have done one successful mission of orbit. So orbit is easier. Landing is little more difficult. So landing is what we are doing, and then they are also have Suryaan. And what I have understood is that there is a kind of interest in just like what NASA have done, like probes to Mercury and Venus as well. So all the neighborhood planets that we will cover. That is the kind of immediate requirement.
This is over how many years, sir?
It's a decade, like a plan of a decade. Like that.
Okay.
So, but this Gaganyaan is very much progressing very fast, and a lot of different stages of that, like bringing that the space capsule, like whatever capsule when it falls down after one single revolution around Earth with human beings, it will come down to the ocean. Yeah. So you have to get it intact. All these studies are happening now. The experiments, everything is going on.
How is Chandrayaan 3 going to be different from Chandrayaan 2? And is it true that if you all had higher budgets, maybe the Chandrayaan 2 mission would have been successful the way y'all wanted it? See, for India, it was still a successful mission because India is like backing ISRO like crazy.
Yes.
But if y'all had higher budgets, do you think it would have been a success?
Yeah, the higher budget definitely, but here the crucial issue was some kind of a navigation control system, which when it reaches near to the surface of the moon, that whatever control and navigation, that there was some kind of misplay in that, because the stability of a spacecraft is based on the retro rockets, the rockets that is connected to the surface of the spacecraft. So it's something like if on both the sides of a spacecraft, if you have some thruster going on, if the thrust of one rocket is slightly lesser, it starts spinning. So that kind of spin, that is so it's a kind of a technological glitch, which it will be resolved in the next.
Okay.
And it's basically a kind of thing where experience counts. And to attempt it in a first or second kind of a launch itself is an achievement. That's why we consider that Chandrayaan 2, the orbital is done, and then the launching, there was a failure. Still, it is a kind of success. Yeah. Because the similar organizations, NASA or European Space Agency or Russian GK, they have done multiple trials. Like in case of Chinese, they were initial missions were complete failures. But our this Chandrayaan 1 was the first attempt success, which is very rare and uploaded by all the other organizations also. So if you look at the total number of trials, the third trial is not a bad thing actually.
Yeah.
First trial success, second trial there is a technical glitch, third trial definitely.
A stupid question, but raw question. Do the people at ISRO want a lot more funding?
Definitely.
And y'all have made appeals to the government, I'm 100% sure.
Yes, but I will not be the right person to make any comments on it.
Okay.
But definitely more funds will increase your capacity. Like for example, for any kind of budgeting or
Yeah.
that funding definitely help. But there is one more point I would say. There is now there is a commercial wing for ISRO as well, with commercial launches of the third party satellites, etc. So there is some kind of revenue source, but definitely funding, more funding definitely strengthen your entire capability.
So, for example, maybe like a big telecom company like Jio will actually pay ISRO to create a satellite to further their telecommunication capabilities.
Yeah, that kind of tie-ups are already there, because ISRO is completely tied up with all the industries, that all the different industrial units, private industries. There are tie-ups. So in a way that is happening, but I will not be the right person to comment on funding for like in any manner, like whether private or government funding.
My honest question, not to you but to God, is that why don't Indian billionaires fund this? There is money lying around. ISRO is the pride of the nation. So it doesn't make sense to me why Indian billionaires haven't already done this. And it's also my own motivation to become an Indian billionaire and to be able to create these changes at some point. What I do want to highlight is geopolitics a little bit. The space agency of a country is very, very geopolitically relevant and important, because they say that any technology used by the military is actually developed by the space agency of that country, or at least the space agency has a massive role to play. Parallelly, we had someone called Rajiv Malhotra on the show. He's a geopolitical observer. He said that the big place that India is going wrong in its own geopolitical game is not enough R&D, not enough research and development in order to strengthen our own military technologies. Yes, we have started to build in India, we started to make in India, but we need to put in more firepower, more brain power, more money basically into this process of developing our own advanced weaponry. ISRO is involved in creating advanced weaponry, like futuristic weapons, things like that.
See, there are a lot of things in the public domain which I can actually underline. For example, it's not a secret that Abdul Kalam was a scientist in ISRO and moved to DRDO. So definitely, like all the intellectuals are connected, and we have a kind of an intellectual ecosystem for both organizations, and both like for example, it's a propulsion technology in both of the launch vehicles for space missions or for any kind of mission related to defense. It's a propulsion technology that is being used. So there is a lot of common element. It's not a secret. Every country have the same. It is a similar something. When you talk about NASA or about France, it's the similar kind of say. Everything is similar like that.
Wow. One last question for you, sir. Is it true that we are still discovering the total number of planets in our solar system?
That's it's not very exactly true, because there is a new definition came for the planets, based on which Pluto is now demoted as a dwarf planet.
Yep.
So now the number of planets in solar system will remain 8.
No, but do you think there are undiscovered planets as well?
Of the size of Neptune? No. See, for example, the planets of the size of Neptune, or even now Mercury is the smallest planet. So to that extent, there are nothing to be discovered. I can very clear, because that definition is very clear. It's only because of the definition that a new definition has come for a planet which only consider. I mean, in that definition, only the 8 planets will be there. That is Mercury, Venus, Earth, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune. The kind of objects like Pluto, even Ceres that I talked about, is all considered as dwarf planets. So dwarf planets are unlimited. There are the planets of the size of Pluto are many of them are there. And maybe you are probably talking about a big sized planet which are like bigger than Pluto, beyond the boundaries of Pluto.
Yeah.
But even those things are also now not considered as a kind of a planet by this particular definition.
Why?
Because eccentric orbits which is in eccentric orbits, etc., are considered as part of the Oort cloud system, which is like a icy dwarf planetary systems.
But they are also orbiting around our sun only.
Yeah, our sun, but they are not. But they are purely like all the gases are frozen into a kind of ice.
Because no heat reaches
No
there at
heat
all.
reaches there, and the reason is that um, its impact, like any kind of impact it creates onto the like any other inner planets. Inner means not only the 4 planets, but even the planet up to Neptune. That is very minimal for that kind of. So there may be like planets bigger than Pluto, which may be like part of your Oort cloud. It's very far away. Second thing is very far away, and it's considered as a kind of outer shell of the heliosphere. So it's something like your asteroidal belt, but it's too far away, and creating a kind of a shell for your star.
According to you, what's the craziest thing about our solar system?
The craziest thing, the weirdest things about the solar,
weirdest.
yeah, right. So there are like, for example, Uranus is a planet which is like having a pole tilt, which is directly almost perpendicular to the direction of sun. So it's something like a ball rolling. Because it's other planets are like 23-24 degree tilt, but this is 90-degree tilt, etc. That's what. And another crazy thing is about the Venus, which is having a direction opposite rotation, so that the sunrise, the typical proverbial sun rising in the west and setting in the east will happen in that kind of planets. And then the craziest thing about I mean, yeah, of course, the liquid nitrogen ocean, like that is discovered in Titan, for example. And then water ice ocean in Europa. So now one of the craziest thing I heard is that Europa have more water than Earth.
Yeah. Which might mean it might have something like sharks or whales or fish, for all you know.
Yeah, I mean, but at least microbials for sure. And kind of a different kind of a cryochemistry.
Yeah.
Like that.
You know, we've had Abhijit Chavda sir on the show a lot. He's an astrophysicist.
Okay.
And once we did a special on the history of our solar system, in terms of from when it began to now.
Okay.
And if you actually study the history of human life, we evolved from fish. Fish evolved from unicellular organisms.
Yeah.
But the question is, what did the unicellular organisms evolve from? And that's actually where science stops. That's where scientific understanding stops. We don't know how the first amoeba or the first cell actually began on Earth. And one of the theories is that it was brought from a comet from another system.
Yeah, that's a very important theory, because current model about in the planet Earth in the earlier period, like somewhere around after its formation, few billion years, we were thinking that the ocean became like a poodle of this a lot of hydrocarbons, and then lightning and all the things started creating biological life forms. But there are a lot of loopholes in that theory, where because people have simulated that conditions, and the hydrocarbons were not forming properly.
You mean in a lab they tried simulating the same
the
conditions?
ancient Earth conditions they have simulated, and now there is a lot of weightage for this theory of extraterrestrial origin of hydrocarbons, which create the human life form. So now, exactly like you mentioned, the comets are considered as the bringers of life, because the comets may be forming in anywhere in the galaxy, and there are certain stars which have died in a previous generation star which have died before the sun. They have thrown a lot of hydrocarbons already into the space. Some of them will be collected by the comets, and the comet have a bigger orbits, longer elliptical orbits, so it can go and get connected to another star. So in that star, when such comets hit a planet which is habitable, these seeds of life come from that comet onto the planet, and then the life begins.
So basically our true ancestors are possibly from another solar system.
Correct.
Or at least another planet in our solar system.
That is what I also think, that the reality is much more strange than fiction.
Wow.
Like we are all like we were talking about aliens, and we ourselves, our own the built up the hydrocarbons, etc., may be extraterrestrial. Even otherwise, see, any nitrogen or any oxygen, any kind of elements which are other than hydrogen and helium, they are all created by another star. When the universe created, only hydrogen was there, and the hydrogen slowly became helium, and during the time of Big Bang, and anything else you are seeing, including your carbon, your oxygen, your nitrogen, everything has been cooked in another star, the previous generation star. So even Carl Sagan has famously mentioned, your body is extraterrestrial. Your whatever chemicals that make up your body is cooked in a star.
Yeah. Jiu-Jitsu.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the episode for today.
Sure.
How was this podcasting experience for you?
Yeah, it was wonderful, I would say. And you have a kind of ability to bring in a lot of asking exciting questions, and it automatically comes from the person you are interviewing.
No, thank you, sir. For me, this podcast began as a way to understand ISRO more. But as is the case with any of our episodes, I've understood the universe more thanks to people like yourself. But also thanks for teaching me about ISRO. And I'm looking forward to having more conversations with you.
Sure.
I'll be linking your books down below. Any last message for the audiences?
Yeah, the thing is, the most important message I want to give, because I have talked mostly from the point of view of as an ISRO scientist and from the science, is that our civilization has a very unique kind of upbringing compared to the Western civilization. Is that we have never considered science as a kind of a hostile or negative or a threatening thing. Dharma and science were always together. Of course, like it both have the parent Rita in Rig Veda. So you have to utilize that upbringing, that kind of a thought process that the rishis have created. I see, like, for example, in the social media, if you look at, it's as if like science is something from coming from West, and dharma is something coming from East. And there are certain people who think that we have to develop our own science to beat the Western science. That's all not required, because science as it is, even though it may be adopted by the West and it grow in the Western civilization, is a part of dharma itself.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Jiu-Jitsu, thank you. Looking forward to speaking to you again.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thanks. That's right, baby. We just got a scientist to speak about all these things. If you're listening to this episode till this point, it means you want more of these episodes. If you want more of these episodes, I'm 110% sure you have some guest recommendations. So when I ask for guest recommendations, don't recommend Neil deGrasse Tyson because I'm sitting in Mumbai. He's in America. Recommend Indian UFO fans, Indian scientists, Indian astrophysicists. Tell me what else you'd like me to speak about to these people. Tell me that you're going to download my meditation app Level. Tell me that you're going to follow us on Spotify because we're a Spotify exclusive. And every episode is available on Spotify 48 hours before it's available anywhere else in the world. And if you dislike this episode, go tell it to your own audience base. Don't drop it in the comment section. TRS will be back soon with more talk on ghosts, on aliens, on science, and on all the things you believed in until the world took your innocence away from you. God bless you guys. If you still believe in these things, keep being that kid that you are, because you were born to be creative. Lots of love. I'll see you later.